Hey, this is Rabbi Zev Bannett.
And Ariella Anushi.
Welcome to episode 7?
I think so.
I think it's episode 7 of the Embodied Torah podcast. This episode is called Pesach Cleansing, because sometimes we talk about cleaning for Pesach, and cleaning for Pesach a lot of times sounds like it's about cleaning because we have a lot of dirt around, we want to organize a lot of things, but Pesach cleansing is a little bit more, I don't want to say deep than that. Yeah, I would definitely say deep, definitely more complex, and more specific. So we're going to talk a little bit about what you can be thinking about and how to embody the preparing for Pesach, and then ultimately using that preparing for actually experiencing Pesach. Seems like a useful idea.
I'm all for it.
All right. So what are your thoughts about all of that, Ariella?
Oh, I have lots of thoughts. I just think that it's a very physically demanding holiday that we're embarking on. I know that we're gonna disagree a little bit here. Maybe it's because as a woman, I think a lot of the responsibility sometimes falls on us to be preparing the kitchen in a bit of a different way. But the physical demands of getting rid of chametz and preparing the kitchen for Pesach and turning everything over, and yeah, it's more complicated now than it used to be when people's homes were like, 1-2 rooms?
Right.
But we were engaged in, especially when there's little kids around, you're looking everywhere. I was looking at my wall the other day and I realized that my son was clearly eating something when he suddenly sneezed. And now I have chametz, actual chametz on my walls. So that's a new experience for me. And we're looking for chametz. We want to make sure that it's all out of the house before Pesach begins. But it's, like you said, it's much deeper than that. It's not just getting rid of the crumbs from our home. It's what is chametz. So if you want to share a little bit about what the deeper meaning of what chametz is.
Yeah. So let's do that. Let's talk a little bit about what chametz is, just because it is what we think. In other words, it is actual crumbs and things like that too.
Leavened bread.
Right, it's a little bit more than that. So I think the good starting place is actually, it's a parsha that's coming up soon, where the Torah talks about in Parshas Emor, that we actually read from that on second day Pesach, where it calls each of the Chagim, I think it's in Parshas Emor, maybe it's Pinchas, I'm getting confused right now, but it calls each of the Chagim what's called a Mikra Kodesh, and it's like kind of like a phrase that we say in Kiddush, like Mikra Kodesh Zecher Tzias Mitzrayim, like, and it's like the phrase itself, Mikra Kodesh is just, we just kind of throw it out there. Kodesh, we always know that it means holy. Mikra, it means something, but the phrase actually means a call, like Mikra, it's like a call to a particular purpose, because the word Kodesh means like to be dedicated to something. It doesn't mean to be holy. It means to be, like if you're Kadosh La Hashem, like it says in the tzitz of the Kohen Gadol, it means you're dedicated to Hashem. And when you're makdish something, it means you're dedicating it to that thing. So the idea of every part of the year, each of these chagim is like set aside for a specific purpose or specific energy. Like we talked about a little bit in the Purim episode, like how each of these like energies of the different time periods of the year, like we have each of those like inside of us all the time, and we can actually go through the cycle of the year in like a 30-second span within ourselves on a regular day. It's just like
these holidays are allowing us to go a little bit deeper with a little bit more conscious awareness. Exactly.
And it's like if you can spend specifically a 7-day cycle, which is a specific unit of time, also zooming in on a particular theme or particular aspect of the inner framework that we work with internally, so then you can get really good at it and you can really access it. And you can think of it almost
internalize or embody it.
Embody it, yeah. By the way, good call, embody it for sure. And this, like, I always think of it as like, for some reason, I don't know why it triggers this in my mind, but like the way that our eyes work, like as we age, so a lot of times our eyes start to have a harder time changing the lens shape to actually see further or to see closer. But one of the ways you can deal with that is you can like practice looking at things that are close, looking at things that are far, and your lens you can actually make it more flexible. And then it can actually move through the entire spectrum of distances, and you can still see effectively. It's the same idea as this. Yeah,
I was just teaching one of my students who has some eye issues. There's a whole sequence of stuff to strengthen all the different tiny little muscles that we have in our eye, which is just mind-blowing. Yeah. How much work there is available and how exhausting it really is. Yeah.
I went through a phase with my eyes where I was like actively working, because when you learn a lot, you're like reading right in front of you, you're looking down all the time. So, but like it's the ability to actually travel to any area in your eye shape, to be able to move from this to that, is essentially the same idea we're talking about here. It's like, it's not that we're just practicing to get good at it. It's that you have to be able to live in any area within yourself at any time, because you don't know when you're going to need to access the energy of Pesach that is in one situation, or the energy of Yom Kippur, which is a different situation, the energy of Pesach and Yom Kippur simultaneously, or the energy of Sukkot and Shavuot. Like, these are different types of relationship dynamics that we can often experience simultaneously. And if we're not good at moving between them, we have emotional and perceptual inertia, which is all that's because of the Eitz Hadas, like where you basically end up being in a situation where, you ever get angry at somebody accidentally. No one ever does that. But if someone ever does, then you know that like you could actually get angry by mistake. In other words, that you thought they did something that was a problem, and then you understood actually that they didn't do that thing, and they actually did something which was a good thing, and yet you still feel the anger because the residue of that perception remains emotionally also as it's manifest. And so the better we are at moving through states, essentially.
Right. This is how we define resilience, the ability to shift from one state of being to another. So it's resilience in the eyes, being able to shift from focusing on something that is close to being able to focus on something that's far away. But it's also in the nervous system. I can, if I do get angry and I have a flare up, how quickly can I bring myself back into my window of presence and my ability to access my higher self and consciousness and make the choice of how do I want to behave in this situation, instead of letting the emotion that's pulling me here kind of dictate how I'm functioning.
Right. So and that's the definition of true tikkun hamidos. In other words, midot are not just attributes; they're quantities. In other words, it's like, how much of this thing do you have in you right now? Like, it's almost like a container for anger, a container for excitement, a container for focus, a container for and each of these different the energies of the chagim. So we want to be able to, I guess, have those containers within us. Maybe that container analogy doesn't work so well for this part, but like to access that energy at will and turn it on,
and
turn it off.
And in the right amount.
And the right amount, exactly. Yeah. And if you can't do that, so then you start basically experiencing things like cleaning for Pesach or Pesach itself as something which you kind of wish that you were enjoying it more. You kind of wish that you were doing it. You kind of feel like you're not doing it right. Mm-hmm. And it's like, it can become very, very discouraging, tiring, debilitating, like, because it's hard to do things. It's hard to do work. It's hard to clean all the time for like 2 weeks to get everything different and changed and, fix your house and change your kitchen and all these things. And that can be very draining when there is no embodying of the actual energy of what this is about. Right. It's kind of like, getting ready for your wedding could be like very tiring if you don't remember that you're getting married.
Right.
So it's like, there's a lot of work there. This is very annoying.
Yeah. So bring us back to chametz.
Right. That
so
went
what is
way
chametz?
Off the rails. Totally missed the point there.
So you have
anyway, right, exactly. So the Mikra Kodesh idea basically is, well, if every Chag has its own particular purpose, so the purpose of Pesach can be viewed as the beginning of our encounter with Hashem. So you can think of it as like when two people who are alone encounter each other and discover each other and are like, hey, wow, maybe we're going to be together. Mm-hmm. So then that initial moment going from we're alone to the discovery and the beginning of the connection creates a very intense, what we call the romance phase of a relationship. Right. And that phase is one in which there's no calculations. Then people do all kinds of crazy things.
Spend all the time together.
Right. You're up all night. You are up all night. Then also up all day. You don't go to sleep after that. Like then you go out again the next night. And you're up all night again. And like you're constantly calling, constantly texting, constantly hanging out. And it's like there is no attempt to balance anything else with that because you're so in that. And then as time passes, then you begin to actually construct a structure around the relationship, which is what the marriage is, and we'll get to those phases in a second. But that initial phase where it's just like the discovery and the explosion of joy and passion and just enjoying the change from not having anyone to suddenly having everything, because that's how we experience that. And
right.
and I just want to also stress, like that is the energy of Pesach. The energy of Pesach is the discovery of Hashem, where now there is no calculations. We will literally run after him without food. We have like random...
He sees and hears us.
Right.
And once we are witnessed, like, just I will follow you.
And they do.
Whenever,
we do.
however, yeah.
We literally did.
Yep.
And in the story, the way that it manifests is like, and this is like kind of like we could use this like a chivalry concept, because in the story Hashem is the male. In other words, Hashem generally, whenever Hashem interacts with existence, so what he's doing is he's operating as a character in the story. That is the energy of what's called the Zachar. The Zachar is the one who is making the who is what we'll call it like breaking into the space, which has sexual overtones.
Yeah.
And then the Nekeva is supposed to be the one who is receiving that and then building it into something that means something. So whenever Hashem interacts, that's why in the Chumash Hashem is almost always called Hu. Although you find occasionally some weird things where it's written Hu, but it's read He. Like there's some weird things which I'm not going to explain now, but generally speaking, that's also it's an ironic thing because Hashem is described as male, and in today's world, so there's a lot of discussions about what that even means. But from the Torah's angle, so it's the one that is coming into the story to make happen. That's why Hashem is Moshiach, like Hashem is the one who is coming to bring us towards. And actually, the word Moshiach, I'll throw this in there. This is like, again, I know I'm going off the rails with like a bunch of different points here, but this is like an important one. The word Moshiach comes from the language of Sha'ah, like it's in Parshas Bereshit it says that Cain wants to get Hashem's attention, and it says Ve'el Cain ve'el minchato lo Sha'ah. Hashem didn't turn towards it, because when you're Moshiach someone, what you're doing is you're basically you're making them turn towards you. In other words, you're saying here, like now you can look to me. I'm going to take care of you now. Look to me. You don't have to look at those other people who are threatening you. Look to me. I'm going to take you out of this place. So that's what Pesach is. Pesach is Hashem operating as that creator character, the male energy, and then we are the receivers of that. And we basically say, we will now build ourselves around you and take what you are, and there's a whole series of stages to that. But the first stage is we're giving ourselves to you. We want what you are. And we're going to literally run after you into the desert, Be'eretz lo zru'ah, with no proper food,
no plan,
no idea where we're
ways.
even. We don't know where we're going. We're going in the middle of the night. Like we don't know what's happening. We are just running with you.
Right.
So we're not running from. We're running with. We're like we are following you. So that's basically like that is energy of Pesach. It's not mindless, but it's overwhelmingly passionate, essentially.
So then what's chametz?
Wow, still didn't get to that. We're trying. We really are. It's a good question. What is chametz? Well, when you are in a state of that kind of passion, so when you start a relationship in that way, so if you bring into that relationship an energy of calculation, an energy of waiting, an energy of passivity, really, then that will it will deaden that initializing glow that the relationship has, the fire of the initial interaction. So the dynamic of chametz essentially is it's the passive. It's when you just leave things and they ferment on their own into whatever they are by default, as opposed to you and the other person racing to create and to be and to build and to connect. Instead, it's like, okay, like I'm gonna give some energy to that now, and the reason why you might think, well, just chilling, that could be a good thing sometimes, and that's true, it is a good thing sometimes. But when a relationship starts, when you bring that in right away, then it reflects like there's a lack of awareness of the change from aloneness that was there before to the sudden reveal of the togetherness that we have now. And so it's almost
like you're saying that if we don't have that lack of calculation and just going all in and this excitement, then we're still holding on to our separateness.
Yes.
We're not really becoming one. We're not really coming together.
Exactly.
And it's also interesting important to emphasize that this, chilled out and letting things evolve and rest during the rest of the year, like we need that.
Yeah, hardcore.
It is. You can't. This relationship cannot expand and flourish and last long term if it's always in a state of excitement and
obsession. Really.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You'll just burn out.
Yeah, literally. That's actually what happened to Nadav and Avihu. They actually couldn't follow the structural instructions of how to manifest it, and they actually burnt out. And the Torah says that they got burnt out from the inside out because the unconditional passion that they had was searing. It was overwhelming.
Consuming.
Yeah.
Right. So chametz.
Yeah, so that's there's the medrash basically describes how chametz and matzah are two sides of one coin, and there's all these Torah is always about how the chet and the hay, and the idea basically is that matzah is it's the food that it's lechem oni, which basically is it's the bread that we eat where there is no me, because I'm so immersed in her, there's no me, and it's like I don't need to have bread that is dense, bread that is good, bread that it's just whatever I have, I'll just take it. I don't wait for it. I just make it and I eat it because I have no time to eat. I have to go and be and do things with her. So there's no room for that.
I mean, with him, you said that.
Well, I'm just talking about from my angle, yeah.
Right? But you Dafka said that in the story of Pesach, Hashem is actually this Zachar energy.
Yes.
So it's just interesting to think about. So that kind of changes how we're going into our Pesach cleaning.
Yeah.
Or cleansing.
Pesach cleansing, exactly.
Right. It's not this process of cleaning, and I do want to acknowledge the importance of having a clean space. I mean, Hashem created us with a nature that we do want cleanliness. When we live in clutter, our mind is cluttered. We cannot think. We cannot do that deeper level work that we're really invited to engage with. But each of us have different needs for cleanliness. I know I have some friends who, everything is in its right spot, and if there is a little piece of dirt, that will completely throw them off. And I have other friends who, as long as everything is organized, I don't care how dirty or dusty things are, as long as things are in its place, everything is fine. And so just acknowledging that we have different needs and being able to honor that. So if you do have that need for cleanliness, in order to open your mind, your neshama up to do that deeper work, like there's nothing wrong with that. As long as you're not exhausting yourself in the cleaning of dirt and dust. And preventing you from being able to do this deeper inner work.
Right. That's really where the issue starts. Because I just know for myself, I think a lot of us really struggle with that because it is tiring. Especially now we have a lot of possessions. We have a lot of different areas that we're responsible for, where there's chametz and there's not even without the chametz component, just thinking to myself, okay, like I need to clean my office space. I have to clean my basement. I have to clean my storage room. The wall, exactly. So, and I think that there's a real issue there sometimes that we conflate cleaning in the springtime when it's the time of hitchadshut, we can conflate that with the cleansing of Pesach, because the cleansing of Pesach is really about trying to remove our... I'm going to use this word, but it's not really the right word. The word is laziness, but...
Passivity?
Passivity is better, but laziness really, laziness itself kind of deserves its own analysis, which we're not going to really do super in depth right now. But it's really, these are all rooted in perception. In other words, it's all part of the Eitz Hadas dynamic underneath, which is that even our need to clean, right? Like why do we have a hard time having an orderly mind when we have a cluttered environment? Because the environment starts to bleed into our perceptions, and we start to actually our mind starts to reflect our setting, which you could theoretically have a very, very strong perceptual landscape, and that's really what we would have had before the Eitz Hadas story happened, and then you could actually have clarity exactly on reality, and then wherever things are doesn't really impact that, and you can have clarity even, and you can still, maybe there would be some utility in organizing things so you could actually find them when you needed them, but from a place of internal order, you might not have needed to have external order. But then the dynamic of the perceptual distortions that come from the Eitz Hadas, and that's just one example of them, so it can lead to a situation where we basically accumulate clutter in our minds, in our relationship with Hashem specifically. In other words, it's like, yeah, Hashem, like, what exactly is that? And that's even this whole series, all of Yesod blocks, like, it's really about essentially clarifying those things so that we don't have a cluttered relationship with Hashem, but not cluttered just because of disorder. I mean, cluttered like in terms of the kinds of thoughts that we have about Hashem, just like we have clutter in a marriage relationship, you'll have the same type of clutter where it's like when you first started the relationship, there is that initial glow, the explosion of discovery. and there's no calculations, but then you have to start at some point, like actually thinking, right? You have to actually start
Building
figuring
structure.
out, right? Like, how will we live? Where will
Right.
we live? What will we do? And how will we have a wedding? And where will that be? And who do we invite? And like, where do we print the invitation? Right? Like, all these details, and then that can actually start to interfere with the glow of the neshama fires that are trying to fuse. So then that's really like that actually mirrors the process of Pesach. It's like Pesach is the initial glow. Then the Sfiras Omer, the 7 weeks, are basically like the 6 weeks after Pesach, but they're basically building that out. It's like, okay, let me take that now and actually in the structure of the neshama manifestation, which is the Tiferet and the Chesed and those things. So then it's like, how do I actually do that now? How do I live that now? How do I embody that? And then it's like Shavuot is basically supposed to be the wedding, which is like, the receiving of Hashem, not the receiving of the Torah, it's the receiving of Hashem. It's like, can I be with Hashem?
Can I stand under the chuppah?
Right. Can I actualize the passion that was now and be like, I'm committing to that? And the Torah is just it's the how to do it. It's like, well, if I'm under the chuppah, it's like, well, what does she want? What does she like? What does she care about? What's important to her? That's the Torah of her. And if it was me. And I want to receive that Torah. It just means I want to be what I can be for her,
right,
in the relationship. And then the phase that right after that is the summertime, which is part of the phase of the Chet Egel, which is like that's when the clutter really comes in, because like now we're not only have we filled our lives with lots of details that can already start to mask the initial fire, but now we're also close together, and then the Eitz Hadas really rears its head, and it's like we really start to only see certain things, and other things fade into the background, and we take each other for granted and step on each other, and then that's when it leads to like we have to rediscover each other and actually find all the impurities that came in and try to fix them. And so that's like Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and then Sukkot. So what we're now trying to do at this phase is like, instead of like trying to correct the impurities and finding them so we can like put everything back where it belongs, now we're actually trying to burn out all the details. We're starting from scratch. We want to be like, there was no wedding. There was no anything. It's like, I'm meeting her for the first time, and it's like, this is the discovery of 0 to 1,000,000. That same contrast of I'm totally alone to I totally found the person, and we want to start that again. And it's like, there is no previous story. And that's true hitchadshut. It's like, now we're really doing something that's completely new. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to burn out all of those details on the neshama side in the relationship space between us and Hashem, and try to now re-engage, or we'll even say try to see it as if you're engaging for the first time, to create this new process.
So you're already going to Bior Chametz, but let's take a step back to B'dikat Chametz, but even before B'dikat Chametz, the preparation that we're doing to be ready for B'dikat Chametz. How can we take all of these ideas and concepts and perceptions and bring them more into our prep,
right?
So that our cleaning is not just scrubbing things down and making sure that we got all the little pieces of chametz. We're putting the dirt and the dust aside, but really focusing on the chametz. How when we're scrubbing that, what kind of intentions can we be having? How are we internalizing our own awareness of our own midot, and our preparation to engage with Hashem through this cleaning.
Right. Well, this is where I have to do a plug for your soda blocks, just because.
Please.
The first answer to the question is like everything that we've been talking about for the last 10 minutes. I mean, I think it's very clear that it's profound. In other words, it takes these dynamics and shows how they're so real.
Yeah.
And how Pesach is not just like something that you have to like one day hope to connect to. It's like we all are aware. I mean, even people who have not yet had a relationship like that, there's a whole industry called romantic comedies or just romance movies that are literally just about the yearning that we all have for the fire of that fusion. So that is not like it's not like there's like, well, there's that, and then there's like Pesach. Like that is the energy.
Yeah.
So I think that the learning of the Torah in its proper way, to have the pieces fit into place inside of our minds and our perceptions, is by far the most powerful tool to actually activate this while we're doing the work. But while we're doing the work also, I think it's very key to point out, I mean, this is something which we were actually talking about a little bit before we started the episode, is to try to reduce the amount of things we're doing that are not about this. and to try to focus more on both the concept, but also even the halachos of cleaning for Pesach. Like, I find myself doing things when I get ready for Pesach that are nothing to do with Pesach, because it's like, well, I'm already cleaning this thing, so like I'll clean now and I'll clean more, and that's very tiring. But like when I start my cleaning days, like I'm not tired, because like it's the beginning of the day, and then it's like you're at like 12 o'clock in the middle of the day, you're like,
and I'm done.
Right, like I think I'm done forever now.
Yeah.
So it's very key to, learning Hilchos Pesach is important from a place of not violating Pesach, obviously, because when you bring in chametz into that space, so it really harms the relationship, like we spoke about.
Right.
But it's not the only problem. Meaning, the idea of learning Hilchos Pesach is to know what you don't have to do, also.
Right.
Because there are things that we're doing that we don't have to do. And I remember there like when I was growing up, there used to be like I forget what the name of the list is now. Like all these things that you're not allowed to have on Pesach because they're creams and medicines. And then one year, I forget which organization put it out, there was a psak that basically said, like, those kinds of taruvos chametz that are not edible in any way, they're not usher to have at all. And it was like this crazy reveal for, again, that was before I hadn't even learned any of these concepts at that point, and I just remember thinking, like, oh, that's really bizarre. Yeah. But like that's a good example of, like, when you know some of these halachos more clearly, then it's like, okay, like, what do I actually need to do?
Right. Versus
what am I doing because I'm just making myself overly pressurized in a way that is actually damaging.
Right,
me.
which really is reflective of an awareness of what Hashem is asking of us, right? Am I doing this to be cleaning, or am I doing this because this is the preparation that Hashem wants me to be engaged with?
Right.
And is it for me and my
the key difference.
Cleanliness needs, or is it me and my need to be close to Hashem and be prepared for that relationship with Hashem?
I mean, that difference is so central. I mean, you could articulate that just as like, and this is hard for us to do sometimes, because especially for those of us who are much more intense cleaners, like, to actually say to yourself that it's okay if this is not cleaned the way that you want it to be cleaned right now from a Pesach standpoint, and to try to own the fact that what you're doing is for you, and that can be manifest as saying, I'm not going to even do it. I'm not going to do the thing that I'm trying to do right now because it's not for me. It's not for Hashem. Right. Or to do it but say, I'm doing it for myself. But either way, to let go of that intense, almost obsessive, which is ironic because we want obsession. We just want obsession with Hashem.
Yeah.
So like to be aware of those differentiations is super key.
And it's also important to recognize that, like, we have, when we're doing this cleaning for Pesach, so we're often so involved on a physical level, just making sure that it's all gone. But am I leaving enough space for my mental and emotional and energetic and spiritual self to also be engaged with this process and to be also shine through? Or am I putting so much work on the physical body that everything else becomes a shmata? Right. And so one of the things that I know I like to do in my own Pesach cleaning is be very aware of what the quality of my breathing is while I'm engaging in these physical movements of scrubbing or schlepping, and it really changes how we engage. This is a lot of the work that I do with my clients in my studio, but it's an awareness of ourself as a whole unit. So we're talking about physical, mental, emotional, energetic, spiritual bodies, but we're also like, how much work am I using in just my arms and my shoulders, right? And how much of that support can come from my legs, from my abdomen, from my torso, and it totally changes how we're engaging in the cleaning process when we're seeing ourselves as a whole. Right. It's, and then, talking about Sfirat Omer and all the different Sfirot and relating to different parts of our body. Can I bring my whole self? Right. Not just physically, but also energetically and spiritually, into this process of preparing to really seek out all of the chametz, all the things that are lazy, that we're procrastinating, that we're pushing off, and show up with enthusiasm, with this fire, this passion of being close to Hashem. Right.
I mean, I would even say it as like when we talk about Pesach, the theme of freedom is often, it's obviously a central theme, but what you just said, I think, really captures almost like how to how to do this. In other words, what you kind of have to do is while you're cleaning and while you're doing all the work. So as you said, I think to retain that level of awareness, because what you have to remember is what you're doing it for. In other words, not necessarily you're doing it for Hashem, but like who do you want to be when Pesach starts? And
Right.
and that's really what we're saying. It's like who you want to be is you want to be somebody who's free. In other words, like it's like if you know that you're going on that date, like with that person that you just discovered, like in 2 days from now. So then like you want to make sure and let's say you're like, I don't know, in med school or something. So you want to get all your stuff done so that you can be free to do that. Right. And that's exactly what we're talking about now. It's like I'm getting myself ready to be fully free and not have to think about anything except for the person I'm with. There's nothing else. It's like I'm getting rid of everything else. And that is the ultimate freedom. That's like, as opposed to and when I say it's the ultimate freedom, I mean like there's no calculating there, and we can never be that way. Like we're always busy figuring out. Oh, I don't know. So Purim is actually a good example of it's a part of the story in a unique way.
Right.
But I'm deliberately not going into it because I don't want. It's very important to understand actually the relationship. I think. But
I agree.
But Purim is like it's the. Okay, I'm gonna say.
No, you said you're not gonna.
I'm gonna say it very shortly. Just it's the infusion of that energy into the mundane. In other words, that now that we can be in a routine, it's basically the balance of and it's the tikkun of what happens in the oscillation of Pesach, Shavuos, then down through into Elul, like Tammuz, Av, then down into Elul, then fixing of Rosh Hashanah, then Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur is like now we now try to get back to the fire state where there is no body; it's kind of just subsumed within it. And then Sukkot is like now we have the afterglow and after the repairs, and then the winter is very long. So the winter is like regular life. It's dark and cold and empty, and it's like now we're just trying to get through that with the afterglow of that entire unit of all of those things. From Pesach all the way through to the end of Shmini Atzeres, and that's why Chazal actually put in two of these Derabanan like tools of Hanukkah and Purim they're both they're Chagim of Or because it's like we need to shore up the underlying fire of the neshama, so we have those days. So that's like that, but that's regular life. Now we're starting from the beginning. Now it's like it's magic life. It's like we're starting from scratch, and it's like. We're meeting for the first time, and nothing matters. It's just the other person, and that's it. And everything else goes out the window. So in order to be able to do that, we have to actually get ready to do that. Right. So that's a person that I want to be at the Seder, and that's obviously very hard because we're so tired. But once you know that's the target, then that can help with that can actually create a context in a few different ways. So one is what you said, I think, just like the awareness of our bodies. And then it's also the types of things that we're actually cleaning and how we do it. Mm-hmm. And it's also like there can be proactive planning. Like the 2 days before Pesach should not be the most insane times because some of us are able to switch on a dime and just be like, now I'm done getting ready. Now I'm ready and I'm free. But for a lot of us, it's like you get to the Seder and you're exhausted. And the solution to that is to think of it as I need a little time to unwind to become free. And so that means that the day before Pesach should be a day that you're not doing any of this stuff, and it's like you should be done before that, and try to organize that ahead of time, and again like this reduces the load because we're not cleaning everything; we're cleaning the things that need to be properly cleansed, and then we're trying to plan out the weeks that we have doing that, and then coming into it, then it's like okay, that's our target, and that can really help to shape all of the time and all of the things that we're doing. It's like, yeah.
Well, we're lucky this year because we have a whole week. From when we have a chiyuv to be eating bread on Shabbat until we have
it works out.
We have the chiyuv to be eating matzah, so we can really turn the kitchen over.
Yeah, early
in the week, and
super helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I would also say just as a tactic that I actually like to use is to actually take breaks while preparing to learn, meaning like. Don't make yourself crazy, like, try to schedule chavrusas. And this is true for men and women. There's no gender disparity here. It's like, and I think also, especially if women are very involved, find themselves more deeply involved than the men of their household, then it's super important. Because it's like, to try to retain the Torah side of it. Mm-hmm. And it's like, okay, like, I clean for like an hour. I feel like I'm in it. But like, I mean, if you feel like you're in a good groove, then like, you don't need to stop. But like, if you feel like you want to
need to recalibrate,
to recalibrate. So that's the way to do it. In other words,
Right.
and again, don't make yourself crazy. Don't like be like, I need to learn now for 20 minutes and it's so much work and I have to add learning to what I'm doing. Like, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying like you could have literally a sheet of paper that has 20 halachos of Pesach on it, and it could be halachos of cleaning for Pesach, and just like, you could read 2 of them, and that's already like, okay, that like to bring myself back to it. And then also, like, I would even suggest, like, again, Yesod blocks plug, like, start the day, like, take 10 minutes and listen to this episode or something on the website or something which brings Hashem
Maybe we'll
into
make a list of suggested episodes to listen to. Also, playlists of songs. There's beautiful,
Right.
beautiful songs. And some people are connecting more towards, textual learning. Some people are more audio learning, and some people just want to be singing. And yes, sing songs of Geula,
Right.
sing songs of Pesach while you're cleaning. In between cleaning, it really changes the avira for ourselves, for children. It shouldn't be a place of burden. It should be this zrizut for an excitement and of preparation to really be meeting Hashem. In a passionate and excited way.
Yeah, I mean, I really want to stress this, that, like, I know this is, and we've kind of already said it, but, like, there really are, like, these 3 levels of cleaning that I think happen, and it's like, there's getting rid of chametz, there's getting rid of things that are, like, unnecessary ways of doing things in regarding chametz, like overkill, and then there's, like, just general cleaning.
Like spring cleaning.
Right, and, like, the second and third ones, you can really let go of them. In other words, like, I get that, like, we have our ways of doing it. I remember speaking once to somebody about, like, a head, like a female head of a family, and she said to me, she was like, this is how I always cleaned, like, and this is how I've always done it. I'm like, I get that, but, like, you're articulating to me that you're having a problem. You're telling me that you're having a very hard time, and you're also telling me that a lot of things that you're doing are of the second and third category. So why are you doing that to yourself? That was the question I asked her.
Tradition.
Right.
It's really hard to let go of these things.
Yeah.
We have a lot of guilt. This is what I've always done. This is what my mother has done. This is what my grandmother has done.
Right.
And if they suffered, I need to continue suffering.
Right.
And it's I don't know, maybe it's because we're living here in Israel and, like, land of our forefathers and mothers, and like, we're coming back home, coming back to a deeper understanding of who we are and what our potential is. And it's like, wait, I don't need to carry on that trauma. I don't need to carry on that suffering. What is Hashem actually asking of me? And we live in such a time of surplus, like, the opportunities that we like, we're not. I mean, most of us. I'm just thinking about my friend's mother, who is currently stuck in Ukraine, and just davening for her and everyone to be safe. But in general, most of us are safe. We're not running from pogroms. We're not living in food scarcity. We've had the ability to contemplate and engage with deeper spiritual growth than any other generation has. Right. And when we have that opportunity, how dare we waste it?
Yeah, so I think with a lot of these things, it's so much. I don't want to say it's easy, but it's like, we can look at this, for example. This whole area, beautiful area.
Well, thank you.
Amazing, very well decorated, and you can basically just sort of you can eyeball it, and, like, if you know, for example, that you didn't eat with any of these books, then you're good. You don't need to do anything with them. And if you know, okay, so maybe there are kalim here, like, here's a cup, which is maybe a chametz cup. It's glass, so kind of, not really. But, like, you put it away anyway. Like, that's one thing. You can literally eyeball this entire thing and be like, okay, that's done. Now, if you want to, like, go and open every single book and shake it out.
Well, 2 years ago, when my son was 2.5, I literally saw him stick a slice of bread on top of the books. And that year, I absolutely went and took all the books off the shelf and shook them out, because I knew that there were actual breadcrumbs on my bookshelves.
Yeah, so you have to check then. So, but the higher ones, you wouldn't have to check at all.
Correct.
You wouldn't need to do that. And then also the concept of bittul, which is basically where you are able to negate the existence of chametz, that you don't think that it's there, you don't know where it is, so you're just like, it doesn't exist. And that's actually also part of the same dynamic. In other words, the idea of preparing here is basically like, well, we want to find these things so we can be who we need to be at the first day of Pesach, But when we're mevatel chametz, it's also, the concept is that we're saying whatever chametz there is now going to be like it's not here, because I'm going to operate like it's not. And we're not actually inhuman. Like when you're in the glow of the initial phase of a relationship, in the romantic phase, you're not actually able to do what you're doing. In other words, like there's a limit of what you can survive, right? Like if you did that without eating for like a few days, at some point you're going to collapse. You might be like super happy and ecstatic in the collapse, but like you're going to do it. Like you're going to collapse. Yeah. So the point is that like the reality is still there. Our bodies are still there. Our distractions are still there. But we're so on fire from what we're going through that we can nullify them. They're just in the background now. They are not visible. That's the concept of bittul chametz, and we use that in halakha. It's not like it's something which you're not supposed to do. We do it, and we should use it. And it's like if there's bread that you know there was bread somewhere, so you go and you check to remove it. But if anywhere that you don't know and it doesn't make sense that there would be,
I also feel a little bit comforted. You're a fellow dog owner, and so my dog really will find every little bit of crumbs.
Super talented.
And when I finish cleaning for Pesach, I kind of do a little sifu. I do a little walkthrough with the dog around the house. I'm like, she's not finding anything. Right. Like I'm pretty good.
That's a very good tool just to do that. But that's true with a lot of things. Again, like, to make ourselves crazy with things that we don't need to do, and we can literally write off this entire area in under 5 minutes.
Pesach.
Yeah, under 5 minutes. Just like look at it and it's ready. And so there's a lot of examples like that, which I think are just things that we can do in a simple way. And again, if you want to vacuum everything, you want to take off all your couch cushions and vacuum in there, even though there is no food in there, you can do that. But like maybe it's better to do that after Pesach.
And yet,
Depends.
It always surprises me what I find in my couch.
You can look.
Yep.
I'm not saying not to. I'm just saying to try to calculate these things with an awareness of the underlying expectations, and then to reach that goal, the target that we're aiming for.
Yeah. I want to share a really beautiful idea that I heard a few years ago from Rabbanit Yemima Mizrahi that really spoke to me in terms of this deeper level preparation for B'dikat Chametz. And she said that while you're cleaning, before you get to B'dikat Chametz, while you're cleaning, you're thinking about all the things that are chametz within us, in our mido. What are preventing us from running to Hashem and running to mitzvot, and preventing us from shining our light and being our most beautiful and authentic selves. And make a list. Make a list of the things that we encountered over this past year, specific, not things in general, but specific this cycle around, this relationship around. What are the things that we are able to recognize within ourselves that have been blocks? So going through all these different midot and making a list for ourselves and writing them down. And then for the people who have the minhag of hiding a few pieces of bread around the house, because we're so good at cleaning for
no
Pesach.
There's
no chametz left, but we set aside 10 pieces of bread and we put them on a piece of paper or paper towel or whatever, and writing on that paper or paper towel, what is the midah what is the chametz that I'm recognizing, and then taking that and going into biur chametz and really letting that burn, and it's a powerful process to go through, to be thinking about that while we're cleaning, to keep that running list as those midot come to our awareness.
Right.
It shifts. I know for me, it shifts the energy that I'm bringing into the actual searching of the house, and it's a powerful experience to watch that chametz burn as we really transition into Pesach.
It's awesome. It's a great tool. I love that. Yeah, super useful, and I feel like it really makes the point. In other words, like that's what this is about, and we can keep our focus there. And it's one of I think it's a very useful, practical application here. So that's awesome. All right, so I guess we'll stop with that. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Thanks so much for watching, for tuning in, and everybody should have a very, very free Pesach filled with the fire of love.
Amen.
And we should hopefully see each other on the other side.
Amen.
Thanks for joining.